Hello everyone, welcome to IAS and welcome to the next lecture of yearly current affairs, that is part 7, okay, for UPSC 2024. So we will discuss today the environment section, okay, and this is Wildlife Protection Act amendment, which was amended in 2022. And this was amended the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, which is to incorporate more species protected under this law. Okay, and this is about the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, the features of this act under the act provides for the protection of wildlife, wild animals, birds and plants with a view to ensuring the ecological and environmental security of the country. And this act empowers the state to declare protected areas under 4 categories: national park, wildlife sanctuaries, community reserves and conservation reserves. So you need to know about the state has the power to declare these 4 protected areas, okay: national park, wildlife sanctuaries, community reserves and conservation reserves. And important bodies established under the act, such as National Board for Wildlife, chaired by Prime Minister, and National Tiger Conservation Authority, that is NTCA. Okay, this is the highest authority to declare the national park, or not national park but national tiger reserve, okay, declare tiger reserve, and Central Zoo Authority. Okay, these are the important forest protected areas. And the act has created 6 schedules, six schedule for especially protected plants, especially protected animals and vermin species, which give varying degrees of protection to classes of flora and fauna. And this history of Wildlife Protection Act or Wildlife Protection Law. In 1887, the Wild Birds Protection Act was passed by British Indian government. During this time, the Lord Dufferin was the Governor General of India, and in 1912 the Wild Birds and Animals Protection Act was passed and amended in 1935, and in 1927 the Indian Forest Act established sanctuaries and provided rules for hunting limitations in reserved forests. And in 1972 finally this law converted into Wildlife Protection Act 1972 passed, and in 1976 forest and protection of wild animals shifted to concurrent list from the state list. So this is you should remember this. Before 1972 this act was framed, the wildlife animals or wild animals and forest and protected of wild animals were under the concurrent list. Okay, but after 1972 these forest and protection of wild animals shifted from concurrent list to state list. Okay, so you should remember this. And categories of protected areas under Wildlife Protection Act 1972: in national park, wildlife sanctuaries, community reserves, and conservation reserves. uh, an area where within a sanctuary or not can be notified by the state government to be constituted as a national park. So you should remember this. The national park is declared by the state government, and it is highest authority that declares the national park. No human activity is permitted. That is the uh, protected highest protected area under these four protected areas. No human activity is permitted inside national park except for the ones permitted by chief wildlife warden of the state. Okay, so you should remember this. And under wildlife sanctuary, the feature of wildlife sanctuary, that is any area other than area comprised with any reserve forest or the territorial waters can be notified by the state government. This is also notified by the state government to constitute as a sanctuary, and some restricted human activities are allowed, but in national park, that is the complete restriction that not allowed as human activity. And you should remember the difference between national park and wildlife sanctuary, that is the under national park the highest protected area than the wildlife sanctuary. Okay, and you should remember this facts, which is very important for prelims as well as mains examination, especially for prelims examination, that a national park cannot designated as wildlife sanctuary, whereas wildlife sanctuary can be designated as a national park. Okay, so this is a fact about the difference between wildlife sanctuary and national park. And under community reserve and conservation reserves denotes these reserves denote areas which act as buffer zones to or connectors and migration corridors between established national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, and reserved and protected forest. You should know that this is biosphere reserve, and under this is core zone, and okay, core zone. There are three zone. This is core zone. Under this, a community reserve here can be designated by the government. Okay, and here the some or even the agricultural areas can be initiated by the tribals as well as local communities. Okay, so you need to know about this. The community reserve and conservation reserves, these are buffer zones. Okay, such as this is a core zone, this is a buffer zone. Okay, and can be declared, these are communities or can be declared here. Okay, and these are the uh, outer area of biosphere reserve. Okay, and this is about why this act was needed to amendment. In 2022, Act seeks to conservation and protect wildlife through better management of protected areas and implement the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. So here you should know that this act was amended because of this was come under the international body, that is CITES. Okay, which is the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. So this was, and some other protected animals as well as plants and schedules were reduced through this amendment act. And key amendment, that is new chapter 5b for implementation of CITES. Designation of authorities. The central government will designate the management authority responsible for issuance of permits and certificates for trade of scheduled specimens in accordance with the convention, and scientific authority to advise MA, that is management authority, on aspects related to impact on the survival of the specimens being traded, and identification mark to be used by the management authority for a specimen as per the size. Modification or removal of the identification mark is prohibited because this site is under this site the very stringent laws are made under this authority, under this convention. And breeders of species in appendix first of schedule 4 required to make an application for license to the chief wildlife warden within 90 days of the commencement of the amendment, and conditions for export, import, re-export and introduction from sea of scheduled specimens have been specified. That is, if you trade of protected animals through export, import and re-export, okay, so and introduction in any protected areas, you have to uh, take a permission from chief wildlife warden, okay, chief wildlife warden, okay. So you should remember this. And this is, and next recommendation is rationalization of scheduled. The number of schedules from reduced from 6 to 4 by reducing the number of schedules for especially protected animals from 4 to 2nd, and inserting a new schedule for specimens listed in the appendices under size and scheduled specimens, removing the schedule for vermin species. Vermin species was designated under the schedule 4, okay. So this was removed from this amendment act, okay. And wild animals will be declared as vermin by central government by the way of notification for any area and for a specified period. And uh, now the vermin species is only designated by the central government, that is the blue blue cow, okay. So Hindi name is Neel Gai, okay. And the next recommendation is control of sanctuaries. And chief wildlife warden will manage and protect sanctuaries in accordance with the management plans prepared as per the guidelines of the central government. And in case of sanctuaries falling under scheduled areas or areas where Forest Rights Act 2006 is applicable, the management plan for such sanctuary prepared after due consultation with the Gram Sabha concerned, okay. So you should remember this. If sanctuary under the Forest Rights Act 2006 or scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dwellers, that is Forest Rights Act. Under this act, if the forested areas come under this Forest Rights Act, then the government or any other management has to take a permit from the Gram Sabha which is located in that area, okay. And next is increase in penalties, okay. Increase in penalties for general violation increases to 1 lakh from 25,000. This is the current situation of the fine. And for especially protected animals increases to 25,000 from 10,000. Okay, so you need to remember this. Not important, but this is very important. Okay, for general violation, increase 1 lakh from 25,000, and especially protected animals, that is 25 to from 10,000 to 25. Okay, and next recommendation is exemptions for live elephants. Live elephant under section 43, the transfer or transport of live elephants allowed for a religious or any other purpose by person having ownership certificates in accordance with conditions prescribed by the central government. And new the next recommendation is new section 42nd capital A for surrender of captive animals. Any person having a certificate of ownership for captive animals or animal products can voluntarily surrender them to the chief wildlife warden. If anyone who captured the live animal or captive animal that need to uh, make uh, this animal or this certificate about this captive animal, and after this they voluntarily surrender them. Certificates have to surrender the chief wildlife warden by this uh, person who captured the captive animals. Okay, and next feature is the relaxation of certain restrictions. Under this, the filmmaking without causing any adverse impact to the habitat for wildlife as one of the purposes for which permits may be granted to enter or reside in a sanctuary. Okay, and certain activities such as grazing or movement of livestock, bona fide use of drinking and household water by local communities, etc., allowed without a permit in a sanctuary. And other provisions, the central government empowered to regulate or prohibit the import, trade, possession, or proliferation of invasive alien species. So you should remember this: the central government empowered to regulate or prohibit the to regulate of invasive alien species and prohibit also for the invasive alien species. Okay, and you should know that central government is protect central government protects these invasive alien species, and you have to take a permission for regulate for import, trade, possession, or proliferation of these invasive alien species, because these are very harmful for indigenous uh, variety of plants as well as animals. And no renewal of any arms licenses to be granted to any person residing within 10 kilometers. Okay, that is, this is the forest protected areas. Okay, and these are communities under 10 kilometers, which is which they inhabit in this area. They cannot obtain this certificate. Okay, and this community cannot obtain the licenses, arms licenses. Okay, so you should remember this. And this is of a sanctuary except under the intimation or to the chief wildlife warden or authorized officer. Okay, without a chief wildlife warden or the authorized officer, the community which inhabits around this protected area under 10 kilometer. Okay, and state board for wildlife permitted to constitute a standing committee. So you should remember this. And concerns, what are the challenges about this act, such as the trade in elephants. Okay, prior to 2022 Act, the only that is Wildlife Protection Act 1972, the only way to acquire a captive elephant was through inheritance. Now amended Act may provide an open sale and purchase of elephants, thereby defeating the whole purpose of the Wildlife Protection Act. And in the existing law, commercial trade of elephants is prohibited. It may drive the live elephant trade underground as traders switched to dressing up commercial deals as gift deeds to bypass the 2003 amendment. In 2003, Section 3 of the Wildlife Protection Act prohibited trade in all captive wildlife and any non commercial transfer across state boundaries without permission from the concerned chief wildlife warden. The ambit of any other purpose in the present amendment will empower elephant traders, put wild populations at greater risk of capture and defeat the very purpose of law. Okay, so you should remember this. And centers hold over vermin declaration continue. Major concern is with how certain animals are classified as vermin. So these are the some features. Okay, last year Kerala's request for declaring wild boars as vermin have been turned down repeatedly by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change under the Government of India, and concern over federal structure protection of wild animals and birds is a subject under concurrent list. Okay, and 2022 Act renders the state boards for wildlife. One second. Okay, so in 2022 Act renders the state boards for wildlife chaired by the chief ministers defunct and provides for establishing a standing committee of board for wildlife to be headed by the forest minister with maximum 10 nominated members. Okay, and these are the significance about this amendment act. Increase the species protected under the law by implementing the sites. Okay, so sites is a very strong body of international convention and participation of forest dwellers, that is these are the scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dwellers, that is Forest Rights Act in which was which was created in 2006 under the statutory body. Okay, and next significance is the rationalized schedule and rationalized schedules for the purpose of clarity, that is vermin was declared under the schedule 4 and now it was removed for the category. Okay, and you should know about this sites. The Convention on the International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, and headquarters of this site is in Geneva, that is in Switzerland, and this convention was generated through an international agreement between governments and which was drafted as a result of a resolution adopted in 1963 at a meeting of members of International Union for Conservation of Nature, the World Conservation Union. Text of the convention finally agreed in 1973 and entered into force in 1975. So you should remember this. An objective to ensure that international trade in specimens of wild animals and plants does not threaten the survival of the species. So you should remember this is very important about the prelims perspective. Okay, so you should remember this this body have to protect these animals. That is the main objective of this body, to ensure that international trade in specimens of wild animals and plants does not threaten the survival of the species. That is, species cannot be traded, that is import or export, that are uh, or which are under threat or extinction. Okay, they cannot be uh, exported or imported. Okay, and secretariat administered by United Nations Environment Program located at Geneva, Switzerland, and members 184 parties and other key information legally. Those countries which are signed under this body, that legally binding uh, uh, on the parties. Okay, this convention is legally binding on the parties but does not take the place of national laws. Okay, so national laws are very strong against this convention, and each party has to adopt its own domestic legislation to its implementation at the national level. And all 184 parties have right to attend, to put forward proposals, to consider and to vote on all decisions. The species covered by CITES are listed in 3 appendices according to the degree of protection they needed. Okay, and this is the Asian elephant that is in danger, so you should know for a prelims perspective. These are the factual information. Okay, and Project Elephant, launched in 1991-92 as a centrally sponsored scheme, and this Project Elephant uh, was launched in 1992 under the Man and Biosphere program. So you should remember this. Okay, Man and Biosphere program for the Project Elephant. And Karnataka has the highest number of elephants, followed by Assam and Kerala. The elephant is the only animal in Wildlife Protection Act's Schedule 1 that can still be owned legally by means of inheritance or gift. So elephant under the Wildlife Protection Act, this is still, these elephants are designated under Schedule 4, that is highest protection. Okay, and very stringent uh, body under the Wildlife Protection Act. Okay, and next is the Forest Conservation Rules 2022. So Forest Conservation Act was amended by this Forest Conservation Rules 2022. Okay, so you should know that the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes reiterated that Forest Conservation Rules 2022 are violative of the Forest Rights Act 2006. Okay, why? Under this news, the earlier commission had expressed concern that the Forest Conservation Rules of 2022 would severely affect the rights of scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dwellers. Because of these rules, okay, National Commission for Scheduled Tribes position on the Forest Conservation Rules 2022 is that it violates of the Forest Rights Act 2006. Okay, so according to NCST, so you should remember this. Forest what are the features of Forest Conservation Rules 2022, and we will later the features of Forest Conservation Rules. These are the features. Okay, these are the facts about Forest Conservation Rules 2022, and issues, and that is challenges. Okay, so here the Forest Conservation Rules 2022, under this, the Forest Conservation Rules 2022 have been promulgated solely to implement the provisions of the Forest Conservation Act 1980. Sorry, this is the Forest Conservation Act 1980. So you should remember the chronological order of the important act about wildlife and forest conservation rules or act, that is the Wildlife Protection Act in 1972. Okay, and the Forest Conservation Act 1980, and next is the Mine and Biosphere under the Wildlife Protection Act. Okay, Human Mine and Biosphere Program in one body was made in 1992 under the protection of the elephants. Okay, and next is the Forest Rights Act in 2006. Okay, 2006, and one body which is very important for prelims examination, that is the National Biological Diversity under the Biodiversity Authority Act. Okay, in 2002. Okay, so this is very important. Okay, so you should remember this. Okay, the rules do not inhibit the commencement of processes envisaged in other laws like Wildlife Protection Act 1972, the Environment Protection, and this is also okay. So it is also very important for Environment Protection Act 1986, Land Acquisition Act 1896, and Forest Rights Act. Here the Land Acquisition Act, not 1896 but 1996. Okay, so you should remember this. And lastly, the Forest Rights Act 2006, etc. Provisions envisaged in other statutory laws can be undertaken simultaneously by the respective nodal implementing agencies. The Forest Conservation Rules 2022 will replace the Forest Conservation Rules 2003. Okay, so these are the rules under 2003, and the Forest Conservation Rules 2022 will replace these rules. Okay, the rules lay down the procedural framework to obtain prior approval from the union government and not the state government. Okay, so you should remember, for the user, these are forest come under the uh, these forests come under the protection of under the list of state list. Okay, and not concurrent list. Okay, so you should remember, but the approval of these rules or procedural framework stated under by the union government for the use of forest land for non-forest purposes as provided in 1980 Act. Such non-forest purposes may include, and later this under 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, this forest was taken under concurrent list. Okay, so you should remember the such non-forest purposes may include diversion of forest land for a commercial or infrastructure project, and reservation of land recognized as forest, or assignment of forest land to any private person by way of lease. And key features of Forest Conservation Rules 2022. So you should remember, these are the important features under this Forest Conservation Rules 2022. Establishment of committees, advisory committee and regional empowered committee is would be appointed by the central government, and project screening committee by state government, and Union Territory Administration. So you should remember this is advisory committee and regional empowered committee will be appointed by the central government, and the project screening committee will be appointed by the state government and Union Territory Administration. Under these committees, uh, these committees will advise union and state governments in matters involving use of forest land for non-forest purposes. And next feature is prior approval of the central government, where the approval shall be accorded by the central government in two stages, where the in principle approval after considering the recommendation of the advisory committee subject to fulfillment of stipulated conditions, and final approval after having received compliance report and ensuring its completeness. Okay, and compensatory afforestation. Under this, the rules aims to make land availability for compensatory afforestation easier. That is, the communities which are inhabited near this forest or under this forest areas. Okay, so these communities uh, shall be compensated by the government, okay, if they face any challenges. And the rules have allowed conservation compensatory authority to be undertaken in states or union territories other than one in which forest land is being diverted or reserved or leased. So here we will understand the compensatory afforestation. That means the compensatory afforestation, that is, if the state government or union territory administration want that this forest can be removed and the development of any industry or any purposes. Okay, so these forests cannot be harmed. Otherwise, if these forests are used by these industrial or any purpose, this forest can be removed, and other area have to find, and these forest should be replaced to this specific area. Okay, so this is the compensatory afforestation. Okay, and accredited compensatory afforestation, the purpose is to encourage people to raise vegetation on its land and sell it to the persons who need to meet compensatory afforestation targets under the act. Creation of land bank. State or union territory may, for purpose of compensatory afforestation, create a land bank under the administrative control of the Department of Forest. Issues with Forest Conservation Rules 2022 contradicts with Forest Rights Act 2006. The 2006 law requires governments to seek prior and informed consent of forest dwellers before allowing a project on their traditional lands. Now, Gram Sabha consent is not required. Earlier, this was a very designated purpose, because without Gram Sabha's permission, state government cannot subducted these areas. Okay, these forest areas, or cannot remove these forest areas for any purpose. This under the okay, now Gram Sabha consent is not required before the grant of the in principle approval, and after approval the central government will leave it to the state government to pass an order for the de-reservation or diversion or assignment. And issues with compensatory afforestation. The new plantation cannot compensate for the loss of carbon stocks and other ecosystem services provided by old growth forest in any realistic time frame. Environmentalists have also questioned the rationale of environmental harm occurring in one state and being compensated in another. According to them, it would have a significant impact on local biodiversity and climate. And these rules can be concluded through the some points. Okay, that it is important to build strong partnerships between forest dwelling communities and civil society organizations and government agencies, because these forest dwelling communities are uh, inhabited in these forests, and they are symbiotic relationship with these forests. Okay, so government should uh, protect these forests as well as the community as well as communities through the permission or through the conservation of these forests. And these forests can be removed, should be removed only and only through the permission of these gram sabhas. Okay, so uh, the government can protect these forests as well as the conservation and can be fulfilled, mm, can fulfill the need of the target of sustainable development goals, and can enhance and also can enhance the uh, carbon credit about in the international platform. Okay, so and such partnerships can help facilitate the sharing of knowledge, skills and resources for effective forest conservation. There is a need to strengthen legal frameworks that protect and promote the rights of forest dwellers and indigenous communities. This includes the implementation of the Forest Rights Act, which grants legal recognition to the rights of forest dwelling communities over forest lands. Okay, so you should remember this. And these are the significance of Forest Conservation Rules 2022, that is the streamlines process to obtain approval for use of forest land for non-forest purpose. So you should remember the forest land for non-forest purpose, that is industry and hydropower projects. These forests can be used for the industry as well as hydropower projects where uh, forests are not very dense populated. Okay, and will reduce time and costs involved in process, will address concerns raised by some states or union territories regarding lack of availability of land for conservation authority, and encourages private parties to cultivate plantations. Okay, so you should remember under the compensatory forestation. Okay, so these two act amendment act, that is here the Wildlife Protection Amendment Act 2022 and this Forest Conservation Rules 2022, these are very important chapter of the environment section. Okay, so you should remember these two rules and act. And next is the human wildlife conflict. Okay, so why was in news? Because recently a report by Controller and Auditor General, that is CAG, held that 63,077 okay animals were run over by trains in last 4 years. Why? Because many purposes, and about more, the report analyzed the data between 2017-18 and 2020-21. The report highlighted that unmanned level crossings were the main reasons behind the death of these animals. uh, okay, so these animals, that is protected animals. The report also highlighted that the guidelines circulated by the Ministry of Railways to prevent animal deaths by trains have not been implemented even after a decade. So why these challenges and concerns regarding these behind these dead animals, okay, and human wildlife conflict. This is a very important for the means exam perspective, okay. What is the human wildlife conflict? uh, this is two struggles that arise when the presence or behavior of wildlife poses actual or perceived direct recurring threats to human interests or needs, and often leading to disagreements between groups of people and negative impacts on people or and wildlife. And you should know you should uh, this definition can be simple, that human wildlife conflict, that is a conflict between human as well as wildlife because of their survival, okay, because of their survival in near forest or in uh, any protected areas, okay. And further, it also proves negative for the wildlife due to retaliatory killings and creating a negative perception towards conservation of wildlife in common masses, because these animals sometimes go uh, through the village areas near forest, they where community inhabit near the forest areas, okay. So these animals go and the communities animals subducted by these wildlife animals, and the communities are very angry, and they can uh, kill these wildlife animals, okay. So these are the conflict between man and animals or human and animal, okay. And status in India about this human animal conflict. According to Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, between 2018-19 and 2020-21, around 222 elephants were electrocuted, while 45 were killed by trains and 29 by poachers. And you are frequently listening that about the elephants are frequently dead because of the spreading of electric wires, and uh, elephants are killed because of the train uh, riding on the rail, okay. And poachers are hovered around the forest for the killing of elephants, okay. And 29 tigers were killed by poachers, and the reasons for the death of 197 tigers during the period remain suspected. Between 2019-20 21 elephants took 1549 human lives, while 125 lives were taken by tigers. So these are very uh, broad concern regarding these human wildlife conflicts, okay. And you should know about these facts under the scheduled first species found outside protected areas because of some reasons, okay. And you should remember these facts, okay. There are 726 protected areas in India, that is in condition of green, comprising 4.88% of total land area, okay. For the 726, out of this the tiger 29% outside tiger reserves, Lansdowne Forest Division, a tiger corridor between Corbett and Ragaji Tiger Reserve, okay, has 20 to 25 tigers but is not a protected area, okay. And out of this the elephants are 67% out of the protected areas. Data from West Bengal and Jharkhand indicates that a herd spent about 235 to 265 days in a year outside the protected area. Here, 235 to 265 days in a year outside the protected areas between 2005 and 2008. Okay, and out of this, almost 100% outside protected areas of wolf. Okay, and grasslands which make up the wolf's habitat are not notified as protected areas. And gangetic dolphin almost 100% out of the protected areas, and black buck out of uh, more than 50% outside from the protected area. So you should remember this. And status in India. Okay, we are discussed this. And steps taken for reducing human wildlife conflict through some initiatives. Under national initiatives, the Standing Committee of National Board of Wildlife has approved the advisory for management of human wildlife conflict in the country. And policy steps, that is the National Wildlife Action Plan 2002 to 2016, gave the new concepts of conservation reserves and community reserves for better human wildlife relationship management. Further, the center is providing financial support to the state government for integrated development of wildlife habitat. Okay, and these are the reasons. Okay, next, the legislative steps. The Indian Forest Act provides establishment of protected forests and reserved forest for better management of wildlife. The Parliament amended Wildlife Protection Act 1972 to provide legal framework for prohibition on hunting, protection and management of wildlife habitats, establishment of protected areas, and regulation and control on trade of wildlife and related products. The Wildlife Protection Act 1972 also empowers the concerned authorities to deal with problematic animals, including declaring any protected species as vermin and to be culled. Okay, and at the state level initiatives, the Odisha government started spreading seed bombs in order to support growth of natural forest which can serve as sustainable feedstock for animals. And steps like biofencing are being undertaken by the Uttarakhand government in order to reduce movement of wild animals in and around human habitations. And policy responses like including man-animal conflict in the list of disasters by the Uttar Pradesh government has been taken to ensure compensation for damage. Okay, so these are the national as well as state level initiatives for the protection of this human wildlife conflict. And reasons for man animal conflict: loss of habitat for wildlife due to conservation of forests into farmlands, and diversion of natural habitat for industrial and residential purposes. Increasing extreme climate events due to climate change like floods, droughts pushes wildlife closer to human habitation in search of food and water. And disturbance and destruction in natural migration pathways of big species like elephants for construction of railway lines and highways. And change in cropping pattern and increase in domestication of animals for animal husbandry which attract wild animals, for example sugarcane plantations and cattle rearing. Also habitat degradation due to growth of invasive alien species serve as a big factor. An exponential increase in human population naturally leads to increased interactions between human and wildlife. Okay, so you should remember this. And other way forward, other solutions which can important for this human protection of human life, human animal conflict, such as early warning systems, use of drone technology to monitor the migration pattern of big species like elephants to provide early warning to the local population can help reduce man-animal conflicts. And wildlife corridors, integrating wildlife corridors in developmental planning like eco bridges can help reduce adverse impact of habitat destruction by enabling smooth migration of wild animals. Ecotourism, ecotourism is a very important initiative. That is, you should know that what is ecotourism. Ecotourism means tourism for the environment and ecology. Okay, an exhibition of animal in the national park as wildlife and wildlife sanctuary. And under this ecotourism, the promoting ecotourism in a sustainable manner can help the local population to reap benefits of the local wildlife, which can help bring attitudinal changes towards wildlife conservation. And buffer zone, creation of natural buffer zones between wildlife habitat and human habitation can help reduce man-animal conflict by providing sufficient feed stock and prey population to wild animals in their natural habitat. And electric fencing, mild voltage electric fencing can be installed around the agricultural fields and remote villages where concentration of wild animals is high to scarce the animals. Okay, so this is about the human wildlife conflict. Next is the fly ash utilization. Why was the news? Recently, the Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has released a notification on fly ash utilization. And the amendments are made under the power conferred on the central government under Environment Protection Act 1986. And this fly ash, because of the pollution, and comes under the Environment Protection Act 1986. There have been various notifications for fly ash utilization starting with 1999, the most recent ones being in the year 2021 and 2020. Though fly ash utilization in India has increased from nearly 10% in 1996 to highest in 1990, 92% in 2020-21, over 17 million tons out of the 222 million tons fly ash generated by still remain unutilized. Okay, and why amendment is needed? And this wider scope. The new amendment extends the compliance of fly ash utilization targets to new thermal power plants established on or after the publication of fly ash utilization rules 2021. And for time limit, the new thermal power plants will have a time period of 4 years to achieve 100% fly ash utilization, and it is similar to the targets of thermal power plants operating at 60% of their capacity, which is to be calculated from 1st April 2022. Okay, and for legacy ash utilization, under this utilization plan, the legacy ash, that is the ash which is being stored from past years. Okay, this is the legacy ash, and legacy ash stored with the thermal power plants have to be fully utilized within a period of 10 years, and this period is to be calculated from 1st April 2022, and such utilization is over and above the feed utilization targets for that year. So you should remember this. And next is the as for the reclamation. The amendment allowed reclamation activity in solar and wind power plants as per the guidelines issued by the Central Pollution Control Board. Okay, and earlier it was only allowed in green belts and plantations. And next is for the time limit for reclamation and certification. The amendment increases the time period to 3 years, so you should remember this. Okay, the earlier only 1 year. For carrying out stabilization and reclamation needs to be obtained from Central Pollution Control Board for the same. clarifying definition of legacy acts. All ash stored in ash ponds or dikes other than currently operational ones shall be treated as legacy act. Guidelines for ash ponds. The amendment permits existing the thermal power plants. Earlier, only newly established thermal power plants were allowed to set up a temporary ash pond of the size 0.1 hectare per megawatt. Okay, and this provision is not applicable to thermal power plants established before 3rd November of 2009. Okay, so you should remember. And competent authority for certification, Central Pollution Control Board along with Central Electricity Board. So these are two bodies which can the competent authority for the certification about these fly ash or thermal power plants shall provide guidelines for safe management and certification of all existing and new operational and reclaimed and stabilized ash ponds. This is to be done within 3 months from the date of publication of Ash Utilization Policy 2021. And 2021 rules did not clarify which ash ponds were to be certified, which is now being clarified by this amendment. Ban on new ash ponds. The amendment bans any coal and lignite based thermal power plants from establishing or designating any new operational ash ponds. And pricing of ash ponds. It provides for mandatory usage of fly ash based construction material for both public and private construction lying within a radius of 300 kilometers from a coal or lignite based thermal power plants. This is to be at a rate not more than the price specified by Central Public Works Department and concerned Public Works Department. Price of alternative products if not mentioned in the schedule of rates. So you should remember these are the some amendment highlight. Okay, or features of this amendment about the fly ash protection. Okay, and key highlights of the 2021 notification, that is introduction of polluter pays principle with a fine for non-achievement of targets and rule of Central Pollution Control Board to review ways to utilize fly ash. Earlier, a 4-year cycle was present for utilization of fly ash. This notification reduced it to 3 years. Okay, and okay, so you should know about this amendment rules. Okay, and here these are the amendment and notification on fly ash utilization. So you should go through 1 or 2 times for reading purposes. Okay, these are not important for chronological purposes, but you should know about the facts related to the fly ash. Okay, that is the stipulated targets for utilization of fly ash produced at thermal plants are mandated the use of 100% fly ash by construction agencies in phased manner in 5 years until August 2007. Revised and extended timelines. They use coal mine. Okay, 500 km away from a coal mine to use coal with ash content not exceeding 34% and extended the area within which fly ash can be utilized from 100 km to 300 km. Okay, the time period to comply with 100% utilization was again extended to 2017, and certain fly ash uses like mine filling, reclamation of low-lying areas, and as soil conditioner in agriculture were prohibited under the environment clearance conditions for the thermal power plants. The 2019 amendment reverses such ecological environmental clearance conditions in order to enhance utilization, and did away with mandatory 34% as content cap stipulated in 2014 notification, and mandated 100% utilization of as in eco-friendly purposes in a 3-year cycle. So you should remember about these facts, okay? And what is fly ash? The fly ash is a particulate matter produced from the combustion of coal in thermal power plant. That you should know about the fly ash simply is the extraction of the ash from thermal power plant. Okay, so you should remember the definition of fly ash. Sorry. Okay, it is created when the mineral impurities in the coal fuse together as they come out of the combustion chamber, then cool down and harden. And chemical composition of fly ash composed of silica, aluminum, iron, calcium and oxygen, and plus arsenic and lead can be found at trace levels. And this is very important for fly ash production. That is, it is a uh, byproduct. Okay, you should remember it is a byproduct of the thermal power plant. So you should remember the two common types of fly ash, that is class F and class C. Under class F, low calcium and carbon content less than 5%, and high calcium and carbon content of less than 2%. So where more carbon content is available, the more demand of the fly ash in the urban areas as well as the construction areas. Okay. And fly ash utilization, why utilization is necessary? Because occupies a lot of land space. Indian coal has much more ash content than other countries, and ash ponds may leach heavy metal traces into groundwater and increase in the concentration of particulate matter and reduce the rate of photosynthesis and transpiration in the plants. And challenges for solid waste management in the nearby areas adversely impacts human health due to respiratory illness. Okay, so these are the utilization of fly ash and benefits of fly ash utilization. This is a cost effective substitute for Portland cement. Okay, and durable as it increases the life of concrete roads and structures, environmentally sustainable as it can be utilized for carbon sequestration, and fly ash has potential in wastewater treatment owing to its chemical composition, and it also effective for the removal of mercury. So you should remember the benefits and why ash utilization uh, important. Okay, and what are the challenges related to the fact use of fly ash? That is the lack of awareness with fly ash production. Strength gain occurs at a slow pace. Okay, because gypsum is not more presence in the fly ash. Okay, because gypsum is a binding material which is cemented for the construction areas. Okay, that is in cementing purposes. Seasonal limitations as low temperatures lengthen setting times, and color variability as it is more difficult to control the color of concrete containing fly ash. And secondary environmental pollution as it may cause leaching of some elements into water. And initiative for fly ash utilization in India. In 2009, it was made it a saleable commodity. An track mobile app has been launched by the Ministry of Power. The National Green Tribunal directed the constitution of a fly ash management and utilization mission, and rationalizing the GST on fly ash bricks and blocks at concessional GST rate of 5%. And at state level, Maharashtra has a state fly ash policy 2016. Rajasthan government decided that power plants will give fly ash to National Highway Authority of India free of cost for road construction. Okay, and these are more number of solutions that fly ash can be used in more purposes. Okay, the utilization of fly ash should be made mandatory for backfilling of mines and road construction, and railway track may be extended from the coal yard of thermal power plant to the ash dike. And ash dike, you should know the dike. Okay, dike for the filling vertical uh, hole under inside the surface of the earth. Okay, and transport subsidy may be contemplated to encourage fly ash utilization, and incentives to private sector entrepreneurs for setting up fly ash bricks and tiles manufacturing units, and export potential of fly ash should be extended. Okay, so you should remember these facts and concepts about the fly ash production and its utilization. Okay, so here we will understand in the next chapter for the products for the development of uh, environmental protection. Okay, about these facts. So here we will end the lecture, and please subscribe the channel and hit the bell icon, and share video, like and comment. Okay, so if you have any doubt, please ask any query in the comment section below. Okay, so thank you for watching. Have a great day.